of times we end up now behaving this way that we do because the person in front of me is behaving that way. But you want them to be calm and humble, you have to give them that same calmness and humility right back. Okay? This verse of the Quran I find to be incredible, from Surah Kahf, Surah Bani Israel, where Allah says, look, don't go about the land, being full of yourself. وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. Don't be like that. And he says, what do you like? And look at the way he presents why. Like, you will never achieve what you want to achieve. إِنَّكَ لَن تَخْرِقَ الْأَرْضَ وَلَن تَبْلُغَ الْجِبَالَ طُولًا. It's not like, because you walk hard on the earth that you can cut the earth open or you can reach the height in the mountains. Right? We want that. We want to plant our ego in the ground. So look, I'm the one that has this firm footing, and I want to make sure that my head is all the way up at the height of the mountain. Allah says you'll never be able to do that. Don't even attempt that. No matter how hard you try to walk on the earth, you're ultimately still a humble servant in this universe. No matter how high you think you are and how much your head is in the sky and you're a little bit, your chest is out and you're 2 feet off the ground, you'll never reach the height of the mountains. So don't walk around like you're egotistical. Don't be it to the point where when you come home, the entire house is shaking with fear, or they have no idea what mood you'll be in. Or they simply don't want to be around you. So they'll be in your room, or they'll be in any room that you're not, you'll find them. The moment you enter the room, they'll scatter, they'll be quiet, they'll tremble, they'll put their head down. It's not the family environment that we want. Okay? So if we believe for a moment that through my arrogance or through my pride, through my kibr, that I can somehow cut the ground and reach the mountains, Allah says you won't. The word is lan. Look at the word Arabic. Lan is used twice in the verse. Lan means that you will never reach that. Nafiya abada. There's one moment where right now you can't, maybe later on you will. Lan means that you will never. Abad. Hum fiha khalidun. Until the very last day of existence, you'll never be able to reach or accomplish what you want to accomplish through arrogance. You won't. Right? You won't. Now, that was a little bit of a preliminary. Now it's important that we kind of bring this home between husband and wife, between parent and child, between all these things, and actually talk about those practical steps inside of a home where we can find humility. Where is it that we can find humbleness? If you are somebody, as an older sibling, let's say, for example, older brother, older sister, right? Who you've been told by your younger siblings, for example, that you're just, like, you're just not a very humble guy. Like, you bring out the worst in me. Or you are a parent, let's say, for example, who believes that, you are the wali and you are the sadparast and you are the leader in the house. So I have to now rule the iron fist. Or God forbid, you're a spouse, a husband, who feels like I have to show my wilayat and rule over my wife by becoming this tyrant and making sure that, what she knows, who's the man, who's the boss, right? And this idea of humbleness is for everybody else, but not for me, Molana. I'm the wali of the house. That thought pattern has to be removed. Okay? It has to be removed. And there are practical steps, inshallah, that we'll go through one by one. Okay? In our homes, number one is to be a good listener. Okay? So being a good listener is a sign of humility. And a lot of us are just simply not good listeners. We're not. The person in front of me, like I said, the sibling in front of me, the child in front of me, the parent in front of me, the spouse in front of me is talking to me, and I'm doing everything else, or I'm making them feel like I listen, but I didn't hear a single thing. Okay? I want to share with you one hadith right now. It's a very beautiful hadith by our Holy Prophet. A little bit of context now is that this comes from our sixth Imam, where he says that this actually is quoted by his father, the fifth Imam. He says a man comes to the Prophet, says, what is knowledge? Okay. جاء رجل إلى رسول الله فقال يا رسول الله ما Ma'al ilm. What is knowledge? The first thing the Prophet says, qala insat. Knowledge is silence. He then says, thumma ma. What else is knowledge? He then says, qala istama'a. To listen very carefully. Thumma ma. He says, then what? He says, qala al-hifz. Then it's to retain what you've heard. Look at the levels now of knowledge. Okay?
Can I mention
one is insat, one is istama'a, one is al-hifz. Thumma ma'a, he says, then what? He says, then amalun bih. Then act on what you've retained. Thumma ma, he says, for the fifth time, then what is knowledge? He then says, qala nashruhu. Then you propagate what you have learned. Look at the level now, guys. Look at what the Prophet says. If you want to know anything, it's not just Islamic knowledge, or no. If you want to know, for example, how your wife is feeling, if you want to know, for example, what the pain of your child is, if you want to know, for example, I don't know, if you want to know why your sibling is acting a certain way, right? The first thing the Prophet says is insat, silence, quiet, and then istama'. Don't cut them off. Don't assume that you know the ending of the sentence. Don't say, yeah, you said, no, let them talk. Make them feel like right now, what you're saying is of utter importance. Okay. Then it's to retain what you've learned. You've heard a lot, but have you retained anything? Then comes the action. This action is number 4 of the 5. Sometimes people like me, we act before we even hear anything. Wait a second now, slow down. Right? Silence, listening, retention, practice, and then you spread. Meaning, then now, if, for example, it requires action, you do the action. Right? You do the action. And I cannot tell you that, of the various calls I get from couples, the various meetings I would go see pre-COVID to go to people's homes. I don't do it very often, but sometimes I go. This is one of the biggest pain points of the majority of the problems inside of a marriage, is that we just are not good communicators. Either we don't express ourselves, or we expect the person in front of me to be a mind reader, and we get frustrated when they can't read my mind, or I'm spelling things out for them, and they're not listening to what I'm saying. They're present, they're there, but their mind is somewhere else. On the phone, watching the TV, for example, looking around, looking like, what, I want to be anywhere else right now, but I don't want to be listening to you at all. And one of the secrets of a very successful family, guys, is that everyone has to be made to feel like they are being listened to. They're being heard. Okay? And one of the best ways to make somebody a good listener, and if you are somebody, for example, has a spouse or a child or a parent who just simply, you talk to them and they're doing everything, they're sitting there on the laptop, the laptop is up in front of them, you're talking to them. Yeah, or you're on your phone, yeah, and you're scrolling, you're finding out, oh my God, I can't believe Giannis signed a huge extension. Oh my God, what's going to happen to the Raptors? Yeah, I'm hearing. You're sending a horrible message, right? And the Prophet of Allah, in his beautiful sirah, and I've said this many times, somebody would begin to talk to him in his peripheral. He would stop what he was doing and he would physically turn to face the person in front of him. Like, I find this sirah to be incredible. And I find like it just sends a beautiful message to your loved one that, look, it could be as simple as a grocery list. Please make sure you pick up apples on the way home. Okay, you want apples, red ones, Macintosh, small ones, right? Yeah, okay, got it. Anything else? Okay, and you're locked in. You're actually physically facing them. It's not like, yeah, okay, I got apples. Yeah, no, you're not doing that. Let them feel like, what, even apples coming from you is about most important. Forget other things, huge, like I'm having a rough day, I'm having a mental health breakdown. I need to get this out. I need you to tell me that I'm wrong or right here. Did I get that? Those things are extremely important. Okay, because the problem is that when you become somebody who's not a good listener, the last point on the screen in front of you is just, I cannot express to you how important it is. You have to understand there is a long-lasting, devastating effect of making someone feel like they're invisible inside the house. Okay? And honestly, if you're a spouse, if you're a parent, and if you're a sibling, an older sibling specifically, I cannot stress to you enough that those three groups, if you are all three, then you have your spouse, you have your children, you have your younger siblings. And I have the power now. I'm a parent, I'm a sibling, I have a younger sibling, for example, I have a spouse. I can very easily make all three of these groups. I can make my wife feel, my younger kids feel, my younger brother feel like they're invisible in my world. I can do that simply by just negating, canceling, not giving any importance, right? And making them feel like, to me, you don't have any worth, man. What you're saying doesn't mean anything to me. The moment they open their mouth, they're shushed inside the home, right? The moment that they want to add to a conversation, someone cuts them off. The moment that they add, let's say, a point that they thought was profound, there's no reaction at all. Right? It goes back to what I've been harping on for years, and that is that internal need of belongingness that we all have. We all have a need to belong, right? It's fitri, it's innate inside of us, right? And I keep talking about siblings. I cannot stress enough the impact that an older sibling has on their younger siblings. Don't underestimate. If you're an older sibling in this group right now listening to me, please understand you have an immense impact and a say in the upbringing of your sibling. Sometimes, you have probably more say than the parent does, right? And especially if you are somebody who has young kids at home, you are in a very, very great position to really make them feel like maybe the world doesn't hear me, but I know my parents hear me. My older sister hears me. My older brother hears me. My spouse listens to everything I say. They drop everything. You know what a beautiful message it is? And this may sound silly. What a beautiful message it is that someone's talking to you. Let's say, for example, your wife is talking to you, okay, pouring her heart out, and your phone is blowing up. Ding, 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 right? And it just takes one glance towards your phone down and up for 2 seconds, and that's it. You know what? It's okay. Check your phone. Don't worry about it. What is a beautiful message is that it's big. It's going crazy in front of you, and you're dying inside. I wonder who it is. I wonder what's going on. But at that moment, now you're so locked into what your wife is saying, you don't even look at the phone, and you're sending a message that, look, this phone is right now my world. My world doesn't mean anything in front of you. But imagine her pouring her heart out to you, and you're like, oh my God, really? Sorry, sir, give me 1 second. That's a horrible message. And the person feels small, invisible. And that carries forward sometimes decades later, guys. I talked about this in my first Ashra in Toronto, that sometimes, they take those moments and they put it away in their bank. And later on, in the form of their work, or when they're a child, when they're a parent, when they're a spouse, I don't know, their anxiety in dealing with public. There are people who have anxiety in leaving the home. Can you imagine? To go down the road and grab some groceries. They can't face the public. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that growing up, they were just invisible inside the home. Maybe they were, the last of all the kids, the youngest, for example, right? Always seen as somebody who, just be quiet. Just be quiet. No one's talking. You're the youngest. Go, why don't you go, clean the table or grab the boxes or do something. Let us talk. Like, that's it. And I'm not talking, you don't have to wait until the person's a little bit older, right? At the age of 5, 6, 7, you can really give them a beautiful base that, look, I can begin to tell you my stories at school about this and that, and grade 2 drama, and grade 7 drama, and grade 4 drama, and oh my God, this happened, that happened. And you make your child feel like, you know what, no matter what it is, I will listen to everything you have to say, even if your stories, mashallah, are woo, they go on, right? And sometimes I think that, they make up stories. Anyways, the first place to show humbleness inside your home is be a good listener. Be a good listener. And I know there are some of you who know that I'm just not a good listener. I'm not patient enough. I need someone to get there faster. I cut people off. I assume I know what the next sentence is, so I help them get there faster. Don't do that. The person communicating to you has their own process. If they are quite detailed in their description, you're not, that's okay. Respect that process. Because there are people who, you know, who leave half the statement out and they assume that you know what the other half is. And they'll say, do you know what I mean? I'm like, I have no clue what you mean. Can you please fill in the blanks? Like, what, like all I heard was, you know, what you might call it, and yeah, that thing, and yeah. So do you get it? No, man, I don't understand a word you're saying. Please give me details, like character names and times and places. And then there are those who, mashallah, they describe everything, right? You don't have the right as a listener to impose your process on the person who's communicating. Okay, and it's not just a marriage thing. It's, like I said, you know, one of the worst mistakes that parents can make with their children is to make them feel like they are invisible, not acknowledged. You know, you wonder why your child is inside their room all day. They never come down. They come down to eat. They go back upstairs. It's almost as if, what's the point of me coming downstairs? If I'm upstairs or out or downstairs or outside the house, doesn't matter. No one really sees me, right? And you have to make sure that the ones that you love are seen by you, and heard by you, and felt by you. Okay, that's number one. Number two is helping around the house. And you wouldn't believe that humbleness comes from helping around the house. Okay, we cannot assume for a moment that any chore around the house is beneath me. I'm not touching that garbage. I'm not touching that toilet. I'm sorry, I'm not scrubbing that. I'm not going to fix the shoes. I'm not doing that. No, that's nasty garbage. No, this and that. You know, there's spilled milk on the floor. No, thank you. It's sticky. It smells. You know, there's rotting, I don't know, there's a rotting fruit inside your kid's room. I'm not touching it, for example. You can do it. No, thank you. Right? Those things are, you know, they're comical. They're funny. Ha ha. Oh my God, you're so crazy. But in reality, it's that, you know, you know, you're not crushing the ego. Okay, look at this hadith by the Prophet. Very, very interesting hadith. It says, the one who doesn't see any house chore to be beneath them, Allah will use this humility as a kafara for their greater sins. Meaning as like a penalty. Like if we have, God forbid, great sins inside of our account that we haven't repented for, we forgot, or maybe we thought, you know what, not a big deal. Right? Allah says, if you show this humility when it comes to house chores, I'll use that humility to pay off the debt that you owe me from those moments that you sinned, maybe when you're 15, 16, 18, growing up, right? And I'll remove the wrath that I have reserved for you. I'll remove that away from you as well. All if you believe that any chore inside the house is not beneath me. Okay, and this goes for everybody, for spouses, for husbands, and for wives, and for the kids, and for everybody. Right? It cannot be the house, the chores in the house cannot be based on one person, nor can you put all of it on one person. You know, in this day and age where you need everyone to be hands-on, everyone's got to help set the table. Everyone's got to help clean up after dinner. Everyone has to make sure that the place is vacuumed. Not just when guests come over. You know, when you're cleaning up, Mama, who's coming over? I used to ask my mom all the time, you know, she used to clean up on Saturdays, Bachadi, and I used to ask her, Mom, you know, Kona Arai, who's coming over? She goes, what do you mean? I'm cleaning the house for you guys. I'm like, oh, sorry. Okay. Now my kids do the same thing with us. Why are you guys sweeping? Who's coming over? We're sweeping because we're nasty people, and the floor is disgusting. That's why we're sweeping, right? So, you know, it's incredible how much, you know, chores inside this, getting down and scrubbing a dirty floor, for example. Right, cleaning a bathroom that's disgusting, taking out garbage that smells of rotting food, cleaning out a fridge, for example. You might think, I don't get it. There is an immense amount of humility in that. After all, it's your house, right? It's your house, right? And it's important that all of us, husbands included now, are part of this process. Okay, we're not going to put all of that on the weight of one person inside the house. It simply isn't fair. Okay. Number three, asking for advice and help inside the house, inside of a family unit. Okay. If you believe for a moment that you are, let's say, the father and the husband and the man in the house, and that it might be beneath you to ask your wife for advice or ask your kids for advice even, then Hadith says to remove that. Now, asking advice, seeking counsel, for those who have kind of read ahead, you know this is principle number 6 in our discussion. So I will further explain that in a couple of weeks. But just to touch on a little bit, it's important that we allow our children to feel like they belong to the tribe. Okay, I think those days are, I like to think those days are gone. where a husband doesn't ask the advice of a wife, for example, or vice versa. I like to think that there is cooperation, there's coordination, there's communication between a husband and a wife, especially now. And I find that that's happening more and more. These are joint decisions, everything from vacation to buying a sofa to what school to send your kid for, even how much to give at a wedding. Those kind of things are all kind of coordinated. But I want to go one step further, and I want you to actually begin to ask your children for advice. What do you think we should do? Right? For example, we want to buy a gift for this person for their birthday. She's 8 years old. What do you think a good gift would be? They'll say, you know what, buy her a backpack, for example. Or you know what, I remember her telling me that she wants, I don't know, she wants this board game. And you actually go out, and not only do you listen to the advice, but you apply it. You go out and you buy the board game. So you know what, you're right. And you wrap it and you give it, and they open it at the party and the person is happy. And you say, you know what, that was a great suggestion. It might be something small as that, but what you're doing is you're making the child feel like, you know what, this is a tribe that you belong to. When you make the child feel like they belong to the tribe, they'll live and die by the tribe. They'll live and die by the tribe. And this sense of belongingness I talked about before will be fulfilled in that tribe alone, not outside. The moment that you feel, or the moment that we make our children feel like they don't belong inside our home, they'll search for their belongingness outside the home. And that's when we've lost control. And that's when we are just praying to Allah that they choose good friends. Now, mind you, it's bound to happen, of course, right? But at least we want to make sure that we let them know that, look, you are a huge part of this household. What you say holds weight in here. If, for example, we are deciding to go on a drive or a vacation, any ideas, any suggestions? What do you think? Something as small as, dinner. What do you think we should have for dinner night? Oh, I feel like it's, okay, let's have pizza, for example. Okay, great. Toppings? Okay. Now, a person thinks, wow, I'm 8 years old. And I just gave my parents some advice and they actually heard me. As opposed to, no, we're having this and that's it. No, you don't but chill. What do you know? And right away we deflate, right? We disrespect that person. Okay. Asking for advice and help humbles you. Okay. And it's the seerah of the Prophet. Look at the war of Khandaq, the war of the trench. The digging of the trench around the tents of the Prophet. You know that in the war of Khandaq, or the war of Ahzab as it's called, Khandaq literally means a trench. It was the advice of Salman al-Farsi to the Holy Prophet about digging a trench around the Muslims to kind of detour or I guess ward off the enemy from getting too close. Now the Prophet could say, look, I'm the Prophet of God. Who are you to give me advice? You're not even an Arab. You're just Muslim, No, he says, okay. And he heard Salman al-Farsi. He actually had that trench dug up. Okay. This is what it is to be part of a tribe, to make the ones around you feel like, you know what, I have a say in this home. And as your child gets older, 17, 18, 19 years old, then you can actually start to ask them for bigger decisions, like moving, like buying a new home. Like, for example, I don't know, a possible proposal for one of the siblings. What do you think about this, right? And like I said, you give them that respect that they need to make them feel like they belong. Okay. But inshallah, I'll open that up a little bit more in principle number 6, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. That's my cheap plug. And finally, the idea of being grateful. Okay. Recognizing that we have been blessed. Okay. And being grateful towards God and towards each other is very, very important. Otherwise, you end up feeling like, you know what? I'm the one that achieved this success. I'm the one that got into a house this size. I'm the one that put the MD beside my name. I'm the one that made myself a lawyer. I'm the one. And this I becomes the idol that we worship. Okay. In this me-centric era, this me generation, this is a huge issue we have amongst our millennials. It's not just millennials. It's just a product of our society. We live in a consumerism-based society. Everything is branding, guys, right? You have to now sell yourself online. And sometimes people go really far to sell themselves. They end up wearing clothes. They end up doing things. They end up, I don't want to give examples online that they would never do, all for a couple of more likes. And can you please subscribe? And can you please follow? And blah, 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 right? In that era now, what's number one is you. Gratitude pulls you out of that worship and reminds you that you have a razik, you have a sustainer. Reminds you that you can't get anywhere without the support system around you. So yeah, if you are, let's say, for example, a successful businesswoman or businessman, a doctor, a nurse, an accountant, a lawyer, remember that when you were going through your studies, when you weren't making that massive salary, the sacrifices the ones around you made cannot be forgotten, right? If you're some big time scholar now who speaks around the world and this and that, remember when you're gone out of town, the one who holds down the fort is your family, right? So all this success is shared. That only comes about in your mind when you actually now become grateful. Look at now Imam Sadiq now narrates a talk between Nabi Musa alayhi salam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do I thank you, Allah? When I know that even this tawfiq and inspiration to be thankful comes from you. And Allah now, he has said this statement to multiple prophets. What is Nabi Musa? That so long as you understand everything comes from me, you thanked me. Allahumma ma bina min ni'matin faminka. We read and talk about the salat. Oh Allah, everything I have is from you. Yes, there's effort on my end, but the door would not have been open without God. At the same time, it is important that we are thankful towards those around us. And again, this idea of compassion is principle number 5, coming up next week now, inshallah. Again, my cheap plug. Next Wednesday, we talk about generosity and compassion as principles 4 and 5 in next Wednesday's talk. In there, I'll talk about this idea of it's not just verbalizing this gratefulness, it's actually now acting like you're grateful. Not just with God, but with your loved ones. With Allah, you keep saying, oh Allah, thank you for the blessing, thank you for the blessing, thank you for the blessing. Use that blessing to please. It's like, wait a second now. How are you thanking me if you're using it to move that away towards me? Thank you to my wife, thank you to my husband, thank you to my kids. But when it comes time for you to actually do something that they want, you don't do anything. You can thank them verbally all you want, but practical gratitude is where the kamal and perfection is. And that, inshallah, we'll expand upon next Wednesday when we talk about the 5th principle, which is compassion. But it's important that you don't take things for granted. If you have great kids who don't have the habits that you see other kids having, if you, for example, you have children or you have siblings that are very close to each other, or a brother or a sister that is there for you when you need them, take a moment and thank them. Your spouse who's been there from day number 1, who's gone through, all these lows and highs with you. Stop for a moment, just out of the blue. You don't need an occasion. You don't need a birthday anniversary. You don't need a hashtag. You don't need a social media post. Maybe, God forbid, behind closed doors, when no one is hearing it but your wife and your husband, just say thank you. Just say thank you. You don't need a long post on social. And I always say that, those, I get myself in trouble here, but those couples who like to express their love and their gratitude on social media in these long posts, they're the ones that I worry about the most. They're the ones that I think sometimes need the most counseling. It's the quiet ones. This is not for a larger audience. This is just for you. I could not be the person I am today without you. Your patience with me, you're supporting me, you making me, push me in my dreams. You push me to follow my dreams, push me to become this way. When I'm down, you pick me up. Small things. Just take a moment and be thankful. Thankful. You don't need diamonds and roses and all that. Sometimes it's just the fact that you acknowledge the fact the person in front of you is somebody who is grateful. It's important that we do that. And finally, this connection is very real. He who has thanked others has thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. So yes, while we understand that everything comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the reality is that there are wasilas, there are connectors, there are intermediate sources between what Allah has to give us and us. For example, we're sitting here and our wife or our husband, inshallah, or our parents or our mother or our father or our mother-in-laws or our fathers-in-law cooked, or sister-in-laws cooked an amazing meal for us and sent it over. Or you can see that they've been slaving in the kitchen all day long, and a beautiful, nice, warm meal, together as a family. You stop and you understand, yes, well, Allah is the Raziq, right? The one who went out and bought the groceries and cut the veggies and cut the meat and cooked the meat and spiced it was, the spouse or the child or the parent. So we thank them. In the process, we're also thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Humility allows that self inside of you to be broken. Being grateful allows you to understand that someone out there now is giving me what I have right now, and that makes you, gratefulness. It's a whole different topic, right? It's actually one of those things that the West now has labeled as an escape from your mental health disorders, right? This whole phenomenon of a gratitude journal, this whole idea of being expressive in your gratitude. All those things help you in your stress, anxiety, and depression, right? The Deen has always said that if you want more, right? In shakartum la azidannakum. If you want more, Allah says, be thankful, right? So the arrogant one doesn't thank anybody. The egotistical doesn't thank anybody. They think, you know what? I built my empire. I built my world. This is me, myself, and I. Yeah, maybe my wife or my husband or my kids were along for the ride, but this was all me. Right? Being grateful humbles you. Being grateful allows you to understand that there is a world beyond this for us to understand. Okay? So that's our discussion for tonight, guys. The floor is open for any questions. I see one already there. So I'm going to stop the share here. And I don't know if Mom Lukbar is now, is he around? Yes, he is. Perfect. So I'll let you go. I'll let you go ahead and if you want, moderate this, inshallah, we'll go from there.
Okay. A question that I had from there is, can you act arrogant if the other person is behaving with arrogance?
Yeah, so good question. I saw that during the presentation. We do have some hadiths that point us towards that, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we don't. It goes back to my idea of being a high road, taking the high road. Okay, if that means that sometimes you take a step back from an arrogant person and give them the space to understand, right? Sometimes, by being arrogant back, we simply flame the fires, right? And we make the fire even brighter. What we want to do is we want to take a step back. We want to remain quiet, walk away possibly, and let them realize that, look, you're just fighting yourself right now. You're not having an effect on me right now. And maybe that can be the form of my arrogance, that I refuse now to engage in a war of words with you. You're not in a proper space. You're a little bit illogical. You're highly emotional. Let's take a step back and you kind of figure things out now. When you're ready now, as family, we'll be here. As your sibling, as your spouse, as your parent, as your child, we will be here when you're ready. But I'm not going to get in this texting war and this war of words, yelling and screaming. No. The second point I want to make very quickly is that we don't want to allow our nafs to taste arrogance. Like, in Imam Khomeini's 40 hadiths, there's a discussion on backbiting. In there, Agha says that yes, there are moments where quote unquote backbiting is permissible. For example, if somebody who's looking for a spouse, they call you, say, look, Asad bhai, there's a guy, for example, in Toronto who sent a proposal. Can you let me know how this person is? I get those calls all the time. It's an obligation on me to tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? In that regard, I can speak about those things. But even then, Imam Khomeini says, be careful. Don't create the habit of backbiting to the point where your nafs now doesn't know when to backbite and when not to backbite. Arrogance is the same way. Sometimes if the nafs feels like, taste that arrogance and it might like that spice, then you end up being arrogant at times when you shouldn't be. Hope that makes sense.
So again, for the group, if anybody wants their own, you can unmute yourself and pose the question to Molana. I put my cell phone on the chat thread if people want me to ask the question and want to text that to me, or you can text it via the chat. So I'm going to give it a second to see if anybody has a question.
I know, guys, I threw a lot at you guys today. I was talking about it's just such an important topic, and there's a lot to cover. So there is a question here privately. If I can ask the person who said that to me privately, anyways, it's okay. I don't have to mention your name. That's fine. So the private question to me was, Assalamu alaikum. Sometimes when I have a complaint from my husband, he tells me I'm just not grateful. What am I getting wrong here? I feel like a valid complaint doesn't signal arrogance and ingratitude. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. Maybe you want to ask him, for example, how am I being ungrateful? Maybe, right? Maybe he's coming from a place where he's letting you, reminding you how privileged you are and how blessed you are. But no, I mean, it's not a direct equation where every complaint is you being ungrateful. No, not at all. It's not that, you can't have, for example, the finer things in life, a brand new phone, a brand new person, a nice pair of shoes, a nice car, because of, the fact there's a pandemic and people are, mind you, I mean, be, of course, a little bit cautious and fair. Don't attach yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that you're not conscious of other people who are suffering all over the world, right? So, you don't have to accept the fact that it seems like he cancels out your complaints, says, oh, you're just being ungrateful. And then, like, no, can you tell me how I'm being ungrateful? Now, mind you, if he does remind you, say, look, you know what? There are bigger things to worry about. You should feel very lucky. Then maybe stop and think, am I being ungrateful? If you feel like you're not being grateful, then be vocal, right? Hopefully, you guys have a good, strong connection where you're able to have a little bit of back and forth without slamming doors and without sleeping on couches, inshallah. Okay.
So Molana, I got a text privately to ask. It says, all your speech are focusing to respect kids and wife. What about the vice versa? I got that texted to me. If you, I don't know if you have time right now to address, or how would you want to address?
Well, so apparently I have I've had this email, not message. Yeah, I've had this message to me before that, you always talk about respecting kids and respecting women. What about parents and men? And my response to that is that for as long as I can remember growing up, all I kept hearing from the pulpit and from these seminars is that what women should do and what kids should do. And just because I talk about two groups doesn't mean that the other two groups don't have any importance. I do think that, and this is my opinion, I could be wrong, there has been a substantial imbalance in our presentation where we have hammered our women and hammered our wives and hammered our daughters, and we have hammered our kids. They're the worst kids, aajkal ke bachche, right? And there might be some truth to that, but I do think that sometimes what gets overlooked is that the husband and the father also has a role to play, and sometimes I'm also a husband and father. I'm calling myself out here, guys. We need to be called out. And of course, as parents, sometimes we have no right to destroy a kid's dignity. So, if you don't like the fact that I address those things, I'm sorry. But in my humble equation and my calculation, there's already been enough discussion about the role of a wife and the daughter and the woman, and a horrible family is because of a wicked woman, and the kids nowadays are rude and badtameez and impolite, and all those things might be true, but it doesn't mean that the other group now doesn't have a responsibility. Okay.
So reading from the chat,
Yes.
Question: how can we create children who are grateful? Sometimes modeling thankfulness doesn't feel like enough.
So it is enough, actually. So you have to stop and you have to remind them, right? If you're able to travel abroad to lesser countries and show them, for example, we had the luxury of going to India in December, and I was invited by the different schools in the villages to come and address the students, and I took my kids with me. They're in senior kindergarten, grade 2 and grade 7. And we took the tour of the school, and I made them look around the classrooms where there was 40, 50 kids in one classroom for one teacher. They had no, I mean, the rooms that my kids go to right now, they're massive rooms with huge windows. There's books on one side and there's supplies on the other. They have their own table, their own desk, everything, right? I go, look, this is how kids also study in this world, right? If you have that luxury. If not, then yes, make sure that you verbalize at least. Thank you. Appreciate the fact that it's not a given. And don't underestimate the idea of cultivating that gratitude, inshallah. Okay.
A private text question was, Is there a platform that we can access within our community that comes, our Molana Sheikh Zakira platform in regards to family/marital counseling? Also, where can I get access on the duty of a man as a brother, husband, father?
So, in terms of the platforms, I mean, each community is different. I'm not sure, what happens in Dearborn or Detroit. There are a couple of programs in Toronto. The Jafri Community Center has a JSS, a Jafri Support Services. In there, of course, there's professional psychiatrists, psychologists who do amazing work with couples and with youth and with families. Not sure what happens, where you are locally. There are some in this call from Houston, and of course, some of you are from Detroit. So I'm not sure. You have to ask around in your local communities. In terms of, husband and wife, I would start off with Imam Sajad's Treaties on Rights. There's a book called a book online called The Divine Perspective on Islamic Rights. The Divine Perspective on Islamic Rights. If you Google that, plus the word Shia, you should come across an al-islam.org link. Open that, and in there it talks about the rights of everybody. And then the author has kind of expanded each right. So in there's a right of a mother, the right of a wife, right? If you want to know as a male inside your home, what are my duties towards my kids and my wife and my mother, for example, then start there, inshallah.
So from the thread, Assalamu alaikum, is it considered backbiting when husband and wife are talking among themselves about family members, more like venting among themselves?
So we got to be careful about venting. Like, I understand the idea that you need an outlet and, your spouse and it's a vault and blah, blah, blah. I get that, but we don't want to do character assassination, nor do we want to put thoughts in the heads of others. So for example, if I'm talking to my wife about my family and my siblings and my uncles and aunts, and I don't want to create animosity in her heart for my family. At the same time, I don't want her to create these images of me, of her cousins and her family. So I would, you can vent without being very specific and talking about the person, and using harsh adjectives. Let's be very careful and try to balance it out. But yes, I mean, that would still be considered to be backbiting. I'm sorry, right? I mean, just because they're your spouse doesn't mean that you are exempt from that. Just I get the idea, and really, you need an outlet, fine, but at the same time, let's be very careful.
Another question that I got was, what do you say to a spouse who, when you say we need counseling, they say, you go, I'm fine?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I think that you have to convince them. I'm not a big advocate of one spouse going, because usually, with all due respect, and I'm being very general here, the one who needs the counseling is the one who doesn't want to go to counseling, because they know what's going to be said. And the one who maybe is the good spouse is the one who actually wants to go and further build the marriage. So I wouldn't go without the other spouse, and I would convince them by any means that, at least let me go talk to, if not a counselor, anyone that you have respect for, let them come and there's just because the word counseling doesn't mean that the marriage is falling apart. It means that maybe we need to look at it through a different lens, right? Doesn't mean you guys are on the brink of divorce. It could mean that there are avenues that you haven't explored yet, right? It's possible. So I have a private question here, Mohammed, if I can go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So how do you confront a father of household nicely if you know that they won't handle it well? I think that if you can go through your mother, if you can be respectful, depending on how old you are, hopefully the father will do well. If the father is not going to take it well, then you have to be patient. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to tell you. If your father is somebody who's old school, who believes that the kid has any right to address them, then there's not much you can do. You can go through your mother and possibly say, look, if you have a moment, when you're alone with dad, just let him know, this, that, and hopefully now, she'll be able to help you out there. One comment here, Al Kissa Foundation, and thank you, Sister Sakina, is working on platforms for families. It's an amazing a team out there in Northern California. Please, if you can, support them. Get out there. They have an amazing stuff for kids and families, inshallah. That's great. Thank you for that, please.
So I think somebody texted me as well for support services, at least for those in the Metro Detroit area. Access Dearborn is a resource. I'm not familiar with it, but somebody had texted that's a resource.
Okay.
So another question was, Assalamu alaikum, you mentioned the importance of older sibling relationships.
Yeah.
How do we enhance relationships between siblings?
So I think that I think it's the onus on the older sibling to do that. So I think that you have to show a little bit of compassion, a little bit of love. You know, if you have like it depends on what stage you're at. For example, right? If there's multiple siblings, okay, then it's okay to cultivate each sibling at a time. So for example, right, and these are things that are small, guys, but they go a long way. Like you have to go to the mall for something, just call one of your brothers and one of your sisters. Say, I'm picking you up, come with me. We'll grab some lunch, we'll go, we'll do some shopping, we'll make a day out of it. Okay? It's weird, what I talk about. No, it might be weird for the first time, but I think deep down inside for every sibling, they want to have a good relationship with their sibling. Okay, it's a matter of cultivating. As you guys get older and you guys have kids and you have common issues, then it's natural. You'll come and you'll kind of mend together, right? Talking about, for example, I don't know, spouse relationships, talking about raising your kids, talking about this and that, right? But initially, at least you can start to cultivate each relationship separately, right? That means you invite just one brother and their spouse and their family to your house. Sit there and just have even just you two, right? Not everything has to be the whole family, right? Just you two. And then next weekend, I invite the other sibling, right? In the process now, what you're doing is you're making a nice little bond together. But guys, I cannot stress enough, if you are an older sibling to anybody, you play a key role in this development of that individual, even as they get older. If that means words of encouragement, if that means fond memories, if that means whatever the case may be, compliments, it goes a long way. Okay. Last question, Mohammed, please.
So I guess one last question is, when we're listening to this, I think oftentimes what comes to mind is other people who are examples of who you're saying rather than yourself. And so how do you reflect on yourself to say, do I have this problem? Do you recommend asking somebody, do you have this problem? Like, how do you, instead of thinking, oh, I know this person doesn't listen or that person, has ego, like how do you actually self-reflect to show that you have those issues that need correction?
So I would highly recommend this process, and it takes a big person to do that, is like you said, ask the closest person to you. Okay. If you have the luxury of having a spouse and you're close, ask them, look, am I a good listener? Do I do enough around the house? And if they're actually somebody who cares about your development and not someone who's looking to avenge, they'll say, yeah, you know what? It'd be nice if you helped out here. It'd be nice if, when I do talk to you, I don't feel like you're present in the moment, right? You're on your phone too much, or you watch too much TV, or, you saw me, for example, doing this, right? You saw me carrying bags and bags of groceries. You're going to come and help me unload the car, for example. Hopefully you two have enough relationship to be able to say, yeah, this is the way, and you're able to now take that from your spouse. Yeah, but I do. No. Remember, like Hadith says that if you have somebody who is there to tell you your faults, accept it as the best of gifts. Oh, as a gift. You don't complain about gifts. You say, oh my God, thank you. You're so sweet. Same idea. Someone has the courage to make you better and the love for you to make you better, even though it's a bitter pill to swallow. Take it as a gift and be thankful. Say, thank you. I'm going to work on that. Right. So sometimes it has to go beyond us. We are the worst judge when it comes to ourselves. Either we're too hard on ourselves or we're way too lax on ourselves, right? So it's important that we do that. So
Jazakallah Molana, another awesome session, inshallah, for everybody. We will, same time next week, next Wednesday. We have 2 more sessions. And so unfortunately, we're past the middle point, and inshallah, we'll look forward to seeing you again next week, Molana.
Inshallah. Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you, everybody. May Allah bless you all. Please be safe. Look after yourselves. Inshallah, we'll see you next Wednesday. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.